Welcome back to another episode of Who the F***. In today's episode, we are joined by a flock of cockatoos. In today's episode, we're talking about a band called Twisted Wheel. They're a kind of a Britpop-esque indie band from the outskirts of Manchester. It's kind of the outskirts of Oldham, to be specific. If you've never heard of them before, hopefully this video will help answer the question, who the f*** is Twisted Wheel?
I'll ride with you. Come on, girl, let me come ride with you. Riding on the waves of love with you. Doing all the things I was supposed to do.
Twisted Wheel are made up of 4 members: Johnny, Ben, Harry, and also Ben. They're from Saddleworth, a civil parish in the metropolitan area of Oldham, part of Greater Manchester. They're described as indie rock, punk rock, and part of the post-punk revival. I think Britpop's a good one to chuck in there as well. They're influenced by people like Bob Dylan.
Though the masters make the rules for the wise men and the fools,
The Stooges. The Who. The Jam. The Rolling Stones. And definitely Oasis. The band formed in 2007 and got their name from the Paul Weller track Into Tomorrow, with the lyric, round and round like a twisted wheel, spinning in attempt to find the feel. In 2008 they signed to Columbia Records. Other Columbia Records artists include AC/DC, Artful Dodger, Aerosmith, Louis Armstrong and Arcade Fire, and that's just the A's. They released their first single, She's a Weapon, in 2008. Which would gain high acclaim by Radio 1, Zane Lowe and Enemy and Q magazines. They would then go on to release a 4-track EP entitled You Stole the Sun in 2008, and released their debut album eponymously titled Twisted Wheel in April of 2009. In 2009 they would also go on to support Oasis at their Heaton Park concerts, some of the band's last. They've also gone on to support some of the kind of most heavyweight UK bands, including Kasabian, Paul Weller, The Happy Mondays, Ian Brown, The Cortinas, Ooh, The View, Ooh, The Enemy, Ooh, and many, many more. They were going to release their second album, Do It Again, in 2012, but by this time all the members bar Johnny had left. Brown describes the album as nothing but pure as can be classy. Balls out rock and roll with some beautiful melodic numbers to calm you down after you've burnt down your house. Alright mate, a little hummingbird. The band formally broke up in 2014 with a simple tweet reading RIP Twisted Wheel. It's actually really hard to say Twisted Wheel. Johnny Brown will go on to release a lot of music as a solo artist and played a lot of acoustic gigs, but in 2017 at the end of one of his live shows teased that there would be a surprise guest. That surprise was the reformation of Twisted Wheel, and the band would stay there to continue to play some classics, some of their old classics and some new music they're releasing on an upcoming album/EP. In January of 2018 the band announced formally that they were back in the studio working together on social media, reading, "Yes, they're back again. Twisted Wheel has been rocked and rolled, smashed up, fallen off the wagon, run solo, found its groove, and is back, unstoppable and relentless. Very much up and running." They also announced a comeback tour entitled Snakes and Ladders, and a press release reads as follows. We all know how much I love these. For Twisted Wheel, Snakes and Ladders is not just a board game, it's a CV. Born in the backwaters of Oldham in 2007, the young band fronted by the feral, precocious Johnny Brown roared into the race of indie rock, with such anthems as You Stole the Sun, She's a Weapon, and Lucy the Castle. Their irrepressible energy and ability to deliver inspiring rock and roll gained them the support slots with Oasis, Kasabian, Paul Weller, The Cortinas, The Happy Mondays and Ian Brown, to name but a few, as well as sell out of their own UK European tours. They talk about, in an interview I read, they talk about Snakes and Ladders being this like metaphor for falling down the board game, and sometimes you make a ladder and that gets you higher, and sometimes you don't and it gets you hit a snake and you get lower. It sounds incredibly wanky. Their most popular record is a song called Ride.
I'll ride with you. Come on, girl, let me come ride with you.
currently sat on 93,000 views on YouTube. This will be their third time playing Reading and Leeds. The first time was in 2008 when they played on the Festival Republic stage. That was my first year. Other bands on that stage include White Lies, The Black Kids, All Time Low and You Me at 6. The second time was actually last year in 2018. 10 years later, they ended up opening the Radio 1 stage after Skinny Girl Diet pulled out. This year they're taking to the Festival Republic stage once again, in between Jeremy Zucker and Black Honey. That's going to be on the Friday at Reading and the Saturday at Leeds. WTF videos for those artists to follow. I have to admit that with so much support from big artists, like Liam Gallagher goes on about them being one of the only kind of frontmen left in the game, along with Richard Ashcroft. I'm surprised I've not come across them, but their tenacity is pretty incredible. Just reading up on them is a really interesting thing. They're from Oldham. Oldham's a really important part of UK music. Number one, it's where the first ever fish and chip shop is from, and number two, it's where a band called the Inspiral Carpets are from. Now, the Inspiral Carpets would take on a young Noel Gallagher on tour with them as a roadie, and would end up going and watching Oasis play as a young band. So without them, we wouldn't have Oasis. Without Oasis, we don't have a lot of UK music, whether you like them or not. Also, Brian Cox is from Oldham, and my girlfriend's dad. Currently, it doesn't look like they're clashing with anyone that I'm particularly excited to see, but it's worth saying that Friday afternoon slot is still looking pretty bare, and I think we're going to have a couple more names announced for the main stage, so I think there's a lot more rejigging that could happen there. And whilst I'm not really the biggest fan of their music, they are a band that get lots of positive reviews for their live gigs, so there's a chance that I'll go see them. I don't think that they're a bad band. They're just nothing that I've really ever come across, and there has to be a reason for that. But I've been listening to them, and I don't think that sounds bad by any sense of the word. But it's also not my whole cup of tea. So on the likely to see scale, I'm going to go with a 5 out of 10. What do you think? A Twisted Wheeler band that you're excited to see at this year's festival? I'd love to know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers. Bye.